We acknowledge the lands which constitute the present-day City of Mississauga as being part of the treaty lands and traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat First Nation. We recognize the ancestors of these peoples as the inhabitants of these lands since time immemorial. The City of Mississauga is home to First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Thank you. At this point, if you could go to the next slide, please. Before I talk about the purpose of the meeting, I think it would be helpful to hear from our two councillors. So Councillor Dasko, if I could call upon you first, and then following that, I'll call upon Councillor Raz.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And this is, to me, this is one of the most important calls that we can have and dialogues that we can have. So thank you all for joining us. The Lakeshore Corridor is a very unique spot, and so I wanted to thank you all for participating and for all the participation previously. I see some that are on the call that I know have participated in the past as well, and thank you for your input. So looking forward to tonight's call, and as always, the Lakeshore Corridor is not new, certainly to the Ward 1 office, and I know to the Ward 2 office as well. And so this is just one of a lot of consultations and calls that we do have with regards to the corridor. So welcome all for coming, and I don't want to waste any time. I want to get right into it. So I'll pass the baton right over to Councillor Raz.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dasko and Sue. I'm very happy that everybody has come on this call tonight. We did have technical difficulties last week, but we've certainly come a long way from that Lakeshore Connecting Community charrette that we had across the wards a few years ago. And we're not going to solve all of our transportation issues, but getting as much public input as possible is one of the steps that we can make our transportation systems work for the people that live there and the people that travel through there. So look forward to the discussion tonight and appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, councillors. So I wanted to highlight for you the purpose of this virtual meeting. And I guess we also want to note that we would have preferred to have met in person. It's been a struggle for many, of course, and ourselves included, over the last year plus many months, and having to adapt to virtual engagement. So we know it's not perfect. We hope you will learn information tonight, and you'll have the opportunity to ask a question or learn more information. And I think it's really important to enforce this is the beginning. This is the introduction, the introductory sessions for the Lakeshore Transportation Studies. So the intent is to provide a framework for you, overview for you what this is about, why it's important, what the timeline is for the 3 projects, and then to respond to questions. So it's really important that, that we set a good opportunity for you to learn about it. If we could go to the next slide. So the format for tonight's meeting, we hope, is fairly straightforward. There will be a presentation given that should be about 20-25 minutes. The team has tried to ensure it is as succinct as possible. So there will be some visuals on the slide to see, and many of those visuals are already on the city's website, and I'll let you know where those are in a few minutes. And so we'll have that presentation. At the end of the presentation, if you look on your screen, most of you are either on your laptop, a desktop, or on your phone, you'll see at the bottom right-hand corner, there's a Q&A. It says Q&A. If you were to click on that, and you could do so now, it'll pop up a box. And in there, you can type very easily, just curse over it and use whatever type you would have, and you can type away a question or a comment. So at any point, starting now if you wish, maybe somebody would be so brave to say hello there and we'll know that you were able to find it, then you can type in a question. When we complete the presentation, as your independent facilitator, I'm going to go right there. Thank you so much for saying hello. I'm going to go right there and I'm going to read out the questions. So it's a bit rapid fire for Nico and Gino, and that we will get through a lot of questions and comments this way. We'll read them out very clearly for them to respond to, and I'll respond to. When I read them out, I will not read your name out. So your name will be anonymous. And that's important to ensure that you feel comfortable to ask a question or state a comment in a really free and careful way. So that's a really great way for us to hear lots of questions. We will be putting together a report from tonight, so all those questions would be able to be shared and the feedback that we receive. Should you, and if there's time permitting, feel that you wanted to elaborate on your question or felt that you could state it more clearly in a minute or two of speaking, you can ask to be unmuted. And we say time permitting because we really want to be fair to everyone, ensure that everyone has the opportunity to have a question noted or certainly a comment shared. So in that, and I'll remind you when we come back to this part of the meeting, you can go to your name, which your name is in the participants under attendees, and beside it there's a place where you can put your hand up, and you could put your hand up and then we'll try to come to you in some order to have you ask your question or share your comment. Again, we'll try to do that as best possible. We hope we're going to see lots of things in the Q&A because that really gives a good opportunity to get some of the good content that's so critical for this study. With your name not being read aloud, when you do raise your hand, I would have to at least call you by your first name, maybe with an initial, so that you'll know that we're now going to unmute you and then mute you back again. And again, so we look forward to the discussion. You don't have to wait. You can start putting in questions or comments as soon as the presentation begins, and that's kind of very soon. If I could go to the next slide. So the project website, I think it's really important that that you would be understanding that there's been material now on the website since about the beginning of September. So sort of an on-demand meeting, an online meeting. And the website is here. It's mississauga.ca/lakeshore/transportation. And that has on it some on-demand material. So you can go there anytime, 24/7, and you would be able to review some of the stuff you're going to see tonight. And there's going to be some questions that they're going to ask you, questions about the material that you're seeing to really learn from you what's important to you about these 3 studies. And we would encourage you, of course, many of you may have already done that, but encourage you to go there if you're able to do so. That information will be available and that meeting will be live until September 30, 2021. When I say live, I mean that it's there and it'll be active on the website until that point in time. So all the public input we get from tonight and from the session, the online meeting that's been on for about a month on the city's website, will be put into a feedback report and shared with the counselors, shared with the community, and will be really important for how we go forward into the key work that's happening. If I could go to the next slide, please. So this is the introduction slide, and at this point in time I'd like to call upon Gino Dela Cruz, my apologies Gino, who will give you an overview of the introduction, and following that we'll call upon Nico Malfera. And as noted, it's about 7:13 by my screen, and we should be 15, 20, 25 minutes max. I'm giving you a range there, and we'll then come to you for your questions. So I will come right to that Q&A bar as soon as they stop talking and start to read out your questions and comments aloud. And I see there's some there. So that's excellent. Thank you very much for doing that. So if I could call on Gino then.
Yeah, thanks very much, Sue. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for attending our open house. It's a very important infrastructure project for the city and for the Lakeshore Corridor. I'm Gino Dela Cruz. I'm the project leader for the city's rapid transit group heading up this project. I'm just going to make some high-level comments and then get into more of the details of the process and the project. So the Lakeshore Transportation Studies, it includes 3 projects covering the entire length of Lakeshore and Royal Windsor within the city limits, and it passes through the Clarkson, Port Credit, and Lakeview communities. Really, the 3 projects are built upon the recommendations from the previous work, the Lakeshore Connecting Communities Transportation Master Plan, and that was completed and endorsed by Council in 2019. So the 3 projects are separated out for this next phase, and that's due to varying environmental assessment requirements and differing environmental schedules, but they are all being done under one assignment to ensure that the end product we have is a cohesive plan for the corridor. So first we have the BRT or Bus Rapid Transit Study. It's shown there on the map in green. It's from East Avenue to the east border with Etobicoke, and that's following an expedited environmental assessment process for transit projects, or what's called a TPAP. One key note for this segment, is that it has been approved for federal and provincial funding under the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, or ICIP. So that funding was for implementation was announced earlier this year. So we are fast tracking this as much as possible. A condition of that funding is that the BRT is substantially completed by October 2027. So working backwards from there, it does seem like it's a long way away, but we are working backwards from there. We do need to get going, and we plan to start construction in 2024. So we're here now doing the TPAP, and the schedule is to complete that by next year, followed subsequently with detailed design and some pre-works to meet our construction timelines. The next study is what we're calling the Complete Street Study. It's shown in yellow or orange there. It's continuing from East Avenue, going westerly this time to the border with Oakville. It's going to follow a more traditional environmental assessment process, and it'll take a little more time given it's a lot more the length of the corridor. And it will have more public outreach events as well. And complete streets just really means we're looking at all modes of travel through this area. So not just focusing on auto travel, but more of a focus on pedestrians, cyclists, and transit. And then the last of the three projects there, we have the Active Transportation Bridge Study. It's shown in pink. It's the preferred Credit River crossing location identified in the master plan study, and it's north of Lakeshore. It's hard to see on the map there. We are prioritizing this study as well for implementation and are looking to complete the study by middle of next year. At that time, detailed design will commence by our Capital Works delivery team, and that'll lead to construction. So as mentioned, this is our first open house. We are looking to get your feedback on these projects. So thank you again for attending. Please review our project materials for more detail and send your comments through the website. You can send me an email or give me a call. Happy to hear everyone's thoughts and ideas on the project specifically, or even the process that we're undertaking and ways we can do better. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nico.
Great. Before Nico starts, we did have a question about the timeline with the materials. So this public session is part of a two-part, if you will, consultation. And so the online materials were put on the city's website at the beginning of September to September 23rd. And because we had technical difficulties with the meeting, we extended that to September 30th. So that's a full sort of 4 weeks. If you are not able to go back into the site between now and September 30th, realizing today's the 28th, you're certainly able to email comments to Gino at any point in time. One of our last slides today will have his email address. So that's, by any means, we want to ensure that you can provide your comments to him. And it's just a matter, the information will still be there on their website. You just wouldn't be able to put in your feedback specifically on the website, but you can share that with Gino as soon as you're able to do so. And my second quick thing, Nico, before you start is we are recording the presentation portion of this meeting. So if you are not able to stay with us for the duration of the meeting, or you know of others in your home or business, on your street, in your neighborhood who would have liked to have seen the live presentation, this will be posted on the city's website next week. So people would be able to go there and see the presentation portion of the meeting, and it will live on the site for some time. So I wanted just to clarify those two quick things. And Nico, if we could go to you now, and you're going to take us through the key content about these three important projects.
Thanks, Sue, and we can go to the next slide. So as part of each of the studies that Gino had just gone over, the project team is completing a number of technical studies to identify baseline conditions, determine any potential for impacts, and propose measures to mitigate potential negative impacts that these projects may have. And some of them are listed here. Some of the really important ones, I see some comments already coming in the chat regarding traffic and transportation. So those will address a lot of those comments about signal timings, congestion, speeding, traffic infiltration on local streets. Other really important ones that I know a lot of people care about are cultural heritage and archaeology, natural environment. How will the project, impact trees, noise and vibration, air quality, and really important climate change and sustainability. Next slide. Gino also mentioned that each of these projects is following a different environmental assessment process, and the timelines for each of those differ slightly. So the Lakeshore BRT study in green here is currently in what we call a pre-TPAP phase. So the formal transit project assessment process, or TPAP, will commence in the new year, and it's anticipated to be completed in mid-2022. And as Gino mentioned, that project has received funding through the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program and will have an expedited timeline for development. The Complete Streets study and the new Credit River Active Transportation Bridge study have already commenced, and they are, the Complete Streets study is anticipated to be completed later in 2022. So as you see, that one goes a little bit longer, the yellow or orange, than the green and pink. And the new Credit River Active Transportation Bridge study has also commenced and is anticipated to be completed in mid-2022. Most importantly, for all of you on the phone or online, the next chance for the public to provide input on these studies will be at our next open house, which is scheduled tentatively in early to mid-2022. Next slide. As Sue and Gino mentioned, these three studies are following from the 2019 Lakeshore Connecting Community Study. And there was a comprehensive public and stakeholder consultation engagement process that was taking place for that planning study. We had 3 rounds of public open houses in each of the communities. We had 4 pop-up workshops, 2 walkability audits with Peel Region Public Health. We had a business community workshop. There was also a website and online survey. And through those activities, we heard some clear messages from the public. We heard that we want to have a more welcoming pedestrian environment, address concerns about speeding, develop higher order rapid transit on Lakeshore, improve pedestrian connections and priority, coordinate signal timing to improve traffic operations, improve intersection configurations, make it more enjoyable and comfortable for people walking and cycling on the waterfront trail and on Lakeshore, explore the feasibility of another crossing of the Credit River. And we heard we want to have separated bike lanes to create a more continuous network. Those are some of the key things that we heard coming out of that study. And again, we're going to have more consultation through this or these 3 projects to inform this work. Next slide. The project team has also reviewed all the relevant plans and policies that exist to inform the planning for each of the projects. And we've listed some of those, the most important ones on this slide. And if you go on our public website, you can click on those to learn more. Next slide. So the 2019 Lakeshore Connecting Communities Master Plan set out a strong problem and opportunity statement for the study corridor. It stated that Lakeshore Road intersects a mix of established and developing communities, and that preserving and enhancing the community's character and sense of place is important. By 2041, the Lakeshore communities will grow by approximately 56,000 people and 16,500 jobs. And without any improvements to the transportation network, congestion will worsen for all road users. The existing pedestrian and cycling network are discontinuous and could be better integrated into the overall network. Existing transit service will require additional capacity in the future and a greater degree of transit priority. With limited road capacity, greater reliance on transit, walking, and cycling is required to meet those future needs. So this requires making these methods of traveling more attractive. The Lakeshore Transportation Studies will adopt this problem and opportunity statement to guide the next phases of work for these projects. Next slide. So I'm now going to get into the Lakeshore Bus Rapid Transit Study. So this is the portion that Gino had mentioned. It's planned to extend for 2 kilometers along Lakeshore Road from Etobicoke Creek to East Avenue. Next slide. And the project team will be carrying forward the phase 1 and 2 recommendations from the 2019 Transportation Master Plan. And what we found from that was that the preferred transit solution for this segment was what we call center running BRT. So that's a BRT running down the middle of the street. Next slide. So you can see here the preferred cross-section that's going to be applied to the corridor. It's shown here in this graphic. Some of the key design features of this are separated bike lanes and more generous sidewalks, the new center running BRT lanes, new express bus stops in the center of the street, curbside local transit will remain in mixed traffic, 2 lanes of vehicular traffic will also remain in both directions, and we will permit left turns at signalized intersections. So the next phase of work will include completing a preliminary design for the corridor using this typical cross-section. And we're going to analyze the environmental effects of the project. And we'll come back to you at our next open house to present that. Next slide. Now we'll discuss the Lakeshore Complete Street Study. So this will consider a complete street approach to improve the experience for people traveling along the Lakeshore Corridor from East Avenue to the Oakville border. Next slide. For this study, the project team will be carrying forward phase 1 problem and opportunity statement from the 2019 Lakeshore Transportation Master Plan. And unlike the BRT study, here we are going into phase 2 of a Schedule C class environmental assessment process, which we are going to consider different transit solutions for the corridor. Next slide. So the project team will be carrying forward the preferred transit solution for the section of Lakeshore Road and Royal Windsor Drive from Godfrey's Lane to Winston Churchill Boulevard. And those are indicated as segments 1 to 3 on this map, also highlighted in green. However, we will be considering additional transit solutions for the section from Godfrey's Lane to East Avenue, and that's indicated by segments 4 to 6 and highlighted in the red color. And that's in response to changing circumstances and stakeholder comments that we've received since the completion of the master plan. Phases 3 and 4 of the municipal class EA process will be the subject of our future public open houses. Next slide. So for the section from Godfrey's Lane to East Avenue, as I had mentioned previously, which were segments 4 to 6 in red in the previous slide, the project team is currently evaluating 3 different transit solutions for that segment. The first alternative we're calling mixed traffic. So this basically just maintains the status quo with buses running in mixed traffic, with the potential to improve transit priority through something we call transit signal priority. The second alternative we're calling transit only lane. Here, 2 existing lanes on Lakeshore Road would be converted to transit only lanes, meaning that 1 lane in each direction would remain for general purpose traffic. You can see here pictures or examples elsewhere in Toronto or in North America. And finally, alternative 3, we're calling HOV or transit. This is somewhat similar to alternative 2. However, in this case, 2 existing lanes on Lakeshore Road would be converted to what we call high occupancy vehicle lanes. And again, 1 lane in each direction would remain for general purpose traffic. And these lanes are similar to the same condition that you've seen elsewhere in the city of Mississauga, where we have HOV lanes. So we encourage you to visit our virtual open house to provide input on these alternatives. Next slide. So the project team will evaluate those 3 transit solutions according to a set of criteria. And these presented here on the slide are the proposed criteria, and they've been organized into 5 categories. Those 5 categories are mobility, quality of place and prosperity, environment, public health and safety, and affordability. Again, I encourage you to visit our open house website to provide input on these criteria. Because following this open house, the project team will incorporate public input and will evaluate those alternatives and present the findings at our next public open house. Next slide. Finally, I'm going to discuss the new Credit River active transportation study. And here the city is developing a preliminary design and completing a Schedule B class environmental assessment for a new active transportation bridge over the Credit River just north of Lakeshore Road. This bridge will enhance mobility across the river for people walking, rolling, and cycling. Next slide. The 2019 master plan identified that the existing Lakeshore Road crossing will become congested by 2041, and a new crossing may improve traffic operations and provide a new connection to fill a gap in the transportation network across the Credit River between Dundas Street and Lakeshore Road. Next slide. The master plan examined 6 bridge locations and determined that an active transportation only crossing of the Credit River connecting Front Street and Stave Bank Road was the preferred option. It was called then option 2. We did consider alternative, what we call multimodal crossings, which would include accommodation for vehicles. However, those were not carried forward from the master plan as they did not address the problem or needs for the corridor.
Nico, before you go further, a few people are commenting that they can't see the slides, that they're not advancing. And I just want to make sure that that's, I know we can see them being advanced, but I'm wondering if one of the members of the public could indicate whether or not they're now being advanced or not for them. The last person was about 5 minutes ago, said that the slides weren't advancing.
Looks like we're getting some thumbs up now.
Okay. Okay. Nico, keep
So
going.
make sure they're in layout rather than stacked view.
Okay, they said they can see them fine.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Ross. So in terms of the public then, if you're seeing it as a layout as opposed to stacked. Okay, good. I don't want to interrupt you. I apologize. I just wanted to make sure that you weren't talking to and people couldn't see what you're talking about. So this is very important.
No problem.
Okay.
Yeah, we can go to the next slide. Hopefully it changes for everyone.
Great.
Should be seeing, okay, great. So the project team will be carrying forward the phase 1 problem and opportunity statement from the master plan for this bridge study. And we are currently in phase 2 of the Schedule B Class A process, where we will be considering different bridge designs. Next slide. So we are currently evaluating 4 alternative bridge designs. Alternative 1, a conventional bridge. So this is the simplest of the alternatives, being the least costly, but not as visually appealing as some of the others. The key disadvantage of this option is the environmental impact associated with in-water piers that it would require, as you can see in the picture. Alternative 2, we're calling Expand Go Bridge. So this is the idea that we could tack on to the existing Go Bridge or expand it to provide that new connection. So this avoids the need for in-water piers by utilizing the existing Go Bridge and widening it to the south. This option would require coordination with Metrolinx and needs to be evaluated structurally for that bridge. Alternative 3, what we're calling Truss Bridge, also avoids the need for in-water piers. However, because of its prefabricated nature, requires large construction staging areas on either side and may have many adverse environmental impacts as well. And finally, alternative 4, Signature Bridge, again avoids in-water piers. This would be the most visually appealing option. However, it would also be the costliest because of the complex design and construction of that bridge. So again, we encourage everyone to visit our virtual open house and provide input on these alternatives. Next slide. We're also evaluating these options against a set of criteria, a similar set of criteria as previously presented. We have 5 categories: mobility, quality of place and prosperity, environment, public health and safety, and affordability. And again, I encourage you to go visit our virtual open house and provide input on these criteria. As following this open house, we'll be incorporating your input evaluating the alternatives, and presenting the findings at the next public open house. So thank you for listening to the presentation, and I'm going to pass it back over to Sue.
Great, thank you. So again, the website is up here, mississauga.ca/lakeshore/transportation, and we'll keep Gino's email up here as well. So at any point, you could certainly email Gino as the project manager